What's up, class? Welcome to Rob the Art Teach interviews. So today we'll be interviewing a very special artist, no other than Aaron Chaz. Aaron Chaz is an artist, creative, business mind, entrepreneur, and so many other things in one. And I have the very own pleasure of calling him my brother. So we want to welcome Aaron Chaz to our interview.
Hello,
What's up, Aaron? How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well. I can't complain. So, Aaron,
Yep.
what was the pivotal point for you where you decided I'm gonna become an artist?
Um, I never really thought I was gonna become an artist, to be honest. Like my whole that like growing up, I always thought I was terrible at art. So like it was never like I'm gonna become an artist in my mind. How it really translated into me becoming an artist, creative. I don't even like to call myself an artist because I don't feel like I'm like technically trained and like consider myself an artist, but how it really started was during my entrepreneurial like pursuits. I would get so stressed out and like to kind of ease my emotion, I would kind of like do some like scribbles, etc. Until like I started like almost translating from you like focusing so much on the entrepreneurial pursuits. I was doing it so often that I was getting better and better at like just expressing myself through creativity,
Mhm.
scribbles, and so on and so forth. And it kind of translated into me then doing paintings, and now I'm like doing gallery shows and et cetera, et cetera. So it's kind of like going from not looking at art at all and thinking I'm bad at it to now being in shows and selling paintings and drawings and et cetera, et cetera. So it's pretty awesome. And so like bizarre to me as well.
Awesome. I remember you always saying that you were bad at art, because I was always the one that was into art.
Yeah.
And you used to be like, I'm terrible. So, what would you say to the student or the person that is struggling with confidence in their own creativity?
Yeah, I think a major thing in terms of confidence in what you're creating is you have to realize that you are a unique person in yourself and to lose the expectation because a lot of times you want to judge what you're making compared to what somebody else is making. And honestly, the real pleasure of what you're making and the benefit to what you're making is that you're making it. So even though it may not look exactly like what if you start comparing what you're making to somebody else's, you're going to judge yourself more harshly. And I think to lose that kind of expectation and freely express yourself and make what you want to make freely, you'll find that your stuff is going to look like you made it. It's going to look like you made it, and it's going to look and you're going to feel some sense of like relief and easier approach to what you're making rather than putting a lot of pressure on your back and saying, oh no, this doesn't look like I want it to look, oh no, this doesn't, and then turning a process that's an enjoyable process into a process that turns into like a headache, like a stressful type of experience. So just losing the expectation and losing that thought of like this person's stuff looks like this and mine will never compare, because that's where I was. That's where I was, because I would look at like your stuff and I would be like, I can't do that. I know I can't do that. I know I don't compare. I know I'm not, I know I'm not an artist because of you making your stuff and me being like, I can't do that. And even like back when I was
Mhm.
younger, like mom, she made like this dog. I was just talking to her this weekend about it. She made like a dog real quick in the park, and it was probably like, now looking back, if I saw it now, I would say, oh, this is what I was looking at the time. But at the time, I was like, she made that so quick, and I can't do that. And I must have tried to draw that same
Mhm.
dog so many times, but like it always felt like it wasn't good enough. So I kind of like was like, I'm no good at art. Let me not even touch it anymore. So just keep creating,
That's good.
keep creating, like, and make your stuff like how you make your stuff, and kind of, you know, obviously do like the technical stuff, learn the technical stuff, but also kind of free yourself and to let yourself be able to make images that maybe don't look like you think they were going to look when you started, because there's something special about those unique approaches and a unique images that you create.
That's good. That's good. So basically, guys, comparison kills, right? So
Seriously.
if you continue to compare yourself, you will never be able to explore what your work can be. And we
Mhm.
say that all the time in class. Comparison kills. What your creativity is, you got to allow it to be. So you said something pivotal, right? You said mom did a really quick drawing in the park and she did all those different kind of paintings and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
growing up with a parent that you were able to see explore different creative avenues, whether it was her making the dolls, whether it was her making clothing, whether
Mhm.
it was her painting, how do you feel that that influenced you on a creative level?
I think it like greatly influenced me. I almost feel as if it's like an innate kind of thing. Just being around that so often, even if I didn't explore it myself, I kind of feel like because I was so exposed to that
Mhm,
creativity and like different levels and different approaches to expressing yourself, that even though it was kind of like dormant for a while where I wasn't really creating much of anything, I feel like it really allowed me to approach things. Like it made me want to create. It made me want to like make things ultimately. Whether and before I started making paintings and drawings, etc. Like even in high school, I'll record videos and piece it together and put it on YouTube. They're still on YouTube now. Like I'll do things of that nature because even going into college, I thought I would be a film major, but my school didn't offer it. So like things like that, it's all based on like seeing mom do all these different things and just like an innate kind of creativity like in us doing videos with our aunts and our cousins making like acting. It's just like a way of expressing yourself that makes you feel like you have something to show for what you felt, or like have something to show for the time that you spent. Your focus is your you have something to show for the focus that you're putting into something, and seeing that process of like develop and develop until you have something physical to show for it feels special.
mhm. Definitely, definitely. So, if any, what artists are you inspired by?
I'm inspired. I'm inspired by a lot of different artists, but I'd say the most definitely I would like the 80s, like those 80s artists like Andy Warhol, Basquiat, Keith
I
Haring.
was gonna say your work has a big Basquiat vibe to
Yeah.
it. To it.
Yeah. Like those artists I definitely seen the most video footage, and it just seems like they're enjoying themselves, they're having fun, like they're expressing themselves. And I think to me artists like expressing yourself uniquely and expressing yourself in a way that maybe isn't, you know, losing that expectation and not taking a certain approach that is always going to be like when you make it, people are going to love it. You kind of making like Basquiat, I felt like at the time, the art that he was creating was so different from what was around, where he kind of freely kind of made things and it looked kind of childish for that time frame. But I feel like because they were childish, it was him that made it. Like they were unique to him. Now you see a
Mhm.
lot of people making similar artworks to Basquiat where they're using a style that's similar, but I don't know if it's as free as it was
Mhm.
when he was doing it. You know what I mean? Like the approach in which they're taking it. I don't know if they're taking a style and running with it, or if they have that free sort of like, because influences build on influences. You see something, you almost, even if you don't try to make it, you can also just fall into making something that looks like something else because of just your exposure to it. So definitely Basquiat, definitely Andy Warhol, Keith Haring, George Condo, Robin Neva, which is a newer, I would say a newer artist. I
Mhm.
went to one of his shows, his first solo show here in New York, and I I had I have so many drawings, and I was like, you know what? I want something from him one day, like a drawing or a painting or something. And since I can't afford that, I'm just gonna go there and I'm gonna bring him a drawing of mine. So I went up there and I was nervous, and I'm walking around with my girlfriend Martha, and I was like, all right. There was people talking to him. I'm like, all right. And before we leave, because we were walking around like just pacing around, waiting to see what the opportunity was. Let me just give him the drawing before we leave. So I gave him the drawing, and in the back of it was the main drawing was like a quick scribble. If you look on my page, you'll see it. It's like Jane. I named it Jane, like Insane Jane.
Mm-hmm.
And on the back of it was actually Weeping Bell, which is also on my page. Weeping Bell on the other side. And when I gave it to him, I was like, I love your art. It just seems like like a free approach to making something. Like you didn't have this expectation necessarily, and it looks free. And I appreciate the fact that your art is as free as it is. And I said, I probably can't afford nothing that you make right now, but I'm gonna give you something of mine. And he took it, and it felt like cool, like to connect with the artists as well that's in these
Mm-hmm.
gallery spaces and talk to them and see, kind of humanize them, because a lot of times you don't get to see these people or interact with these people that are making these things. You just see the images, and it was cool. He was a cool person, and he actually started following me like a little bit after the fact, which was also cool, which is cool. You know what I mean? He's an
Yeah.
awesome
So, so one of the things that you said, I just have a question for you. How important is it now for other artists to kind of connect and communicate with each other within community? Because there's a whole bunch of different narratives about community,
person.
right? We have communities as classrooms, we have communities as families, excuse me, we have communities all over.
Hmm.
But as artists, how important do you feel it is to have community with inside your field of artistry, where you're able to learn from one another, vibe from one another, and make those connections?
Oh yeah, I feel like community in any sense of it isn't like it makes you feel like you belong. Like when you're creating things and other people, you get to associate with other people that are creating things. They sort of have similar, almost like I don't want to say like emotional capacities, but like they understand you kind of better, and they get excited about what they make, and you get excited about it, and sometimes you don't know how your work's going to be perceived, and just hearing like other artists that you admire or other artists that you are in community with, like look at your work and say, "Oh, this is good," or just even look at it and be like, "Oh," like just stand there, just to see someone standing there and appreciating something that you made, and not just
Mm-hmm.
on Instagram and so on and so forth. Is so quick that like you make something and then people are past it almost as soon as they see it. It's kind of like, okay, like, and then they go past it. But like when you get to be in a community where actually you could bring your artwork or even create around other people, where they have the opportunity to look at your stuff and look at it, to actually look at it and like take a second and kind of appreciate it and kind of look like, oh, I like how you did that, or like even if they hate it, I think there's benefits to that. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Because on Instagram or just in social media or so on and so forth, people don't have that opportunity to actually appreciate the work like it should be appreciated. I would say. I don't know, and that's anybody's work. I feel like regardless of who it is, having somebody stand in front of your work and just stand there for a second and just look at the different aspects of it, different paint, different textures, different colors, different subjects, whatever you're painting, and really just sit there and be like, oh, exchanging Instagrams with people that you just met, and they're creative in their own right, whether it's photography, video. They need that as well, because it keeps you going, because you do hit creative blocks where you feel like, what's the point of making anything? You know what I mean? What's the point of painting this picture? Like, like I'm gonna do it because I want to do it because it's inside of me to do it. But when you don't get that feedback, you feel like almost like nobody cares, and you kind of need somebody to care to keep you going, even if
Mhm.
you're still gonna keep going regardless. That reinforcement makes you feel like okay, like somebody else cares, even if it's one person. It's
Definitely.
it's a reward, So community is so important, you know, friends, family, people that you reach out to, or like on social media, like Instagram. I follow artists, and there's some of my biggest like supporters, biggest
Mhm.
like friends on the platforms, because like I see their work, I comment, I share them. If I have that, if there's certain ones I share, and so on and so forth, and that goes a long way, because when you, especially when you work in a social media game, you have to kind of have your stuff spread out, and the only way you spread it out is if you're showing love to other people that are also showing that same love back. So communities,
Definitely.
build your community, like seriously.
Definitely. You said something about creative blocks that really piqued my interest.
Mhm.
So, when you talked about having the community around you to be inspired and everything, it helps you with creative blocks. So, it'll help people with creative blocks and kind of like help them get through it and be inspired. So, how do you personally combat creative blocks?
Creative blocks. How I combat creative blocks, I try to just it's it it's hard, and it's just a time thing, I would say, more so than anything, because sometimes you don't. Sometimes you have this like, I gotta paint, I want to paint, and like
Mhm,
or sometimes you start, you don't really feel that inside you, like I gotta make something, but you start and then you're in it because you started it. But other
mhm,
times you just feel like you're like, I don't want to make anything, or even if you're painting, you feel like, oh, this isn't going anywhere. Like I don't even know where this is going. And just the combat that, sometimes like putting on some music works. Sometimes like Martha would just, if I'm taking a different approach with something, and I'm just like, I don't know, like she'll maybe like it better than I'll like it, and it kind of reboosts my energy into what I'm making. Like, oh, okay, maybe it's not that bad. Let me just keep going. You know what I mean? Or I'll
mhm,
read a book, or I'll watch put on like a documentary of like an artist, and I'll have it play and I'll watch it, or I'll paint while I'm listening to it, and almost like sometimes that helps. Like different approaches work. Like no one approach works every time, but different approaches
mhm.
work. Music works sometimes. Documentaries definitely work. Like putting on like sometimes I watch the same ones over and over. Like some of my favorite ones, like contemporary art documentary, or like the Basquiat Radical Child, or like or Salvador Dali or something. And it's just playing in the background, just hearing about the perspectives that these people were living through, and their approaches, and who they kind of were, and the sense of them as an artist and as a person. It kind of makes you kind of pull back, and even if you're not like in a mood, it kind of makes you want to pick up that paintbrush again. Like makes you want to just say, okay, let me just draw something real quick. Or it's tough when you're going through it's tough when you're going through creative
It
blocks. But
definitely
I
is.
don't I don't think they I don't I don't know, because sometimes they last longer than others. I don't want to say I don't think they last long, because sometimes they last longer than others. And I find that creating something makes me feel, if I'm feeling down or if I'm feeling a certain way, it kind of shifts my mood. But when I'm having a creative block and I'm feeling like down or something, and I can't like snap out of it, so
Mhm,
well, what I will do sometimes is, if I'm feeling real down or really upset or so on and so forth, I do feel like creating a poem or something kind of allows me to leave my emotion and my feeling into that. And then I could kind of put it to the side and I feel better. Or like, even if I'm feeling upset or something, I'll approach a canvas and do something radical that I wouldn't normally do. I'll squeeze a whole tube of paint on the canvas and just say, you know what? Like let me just channel all this energy into painting something, and you'll create something that is different. And then because you're creating something and you have to put some focus into creating it, then you translate the energy into the piece, and you're kind of allowed to kind of release yourself. But blocks are tough. It's just different approaches every time you hit a block. It's like different approaches kind of work. Even like walking around outside, sometimes you need some sort of inspiration or something to just snap you back into like feeling like
Yeah,
it. But it's just different approaches, really. It just
that
takes.
that makes a lot of sense though, because you said you can draw different inspiration from different places,
Mhm.
and the more you're, excuse me, the more you're exposed to, the greater you'll be able to take those different experiences all around and be able to hone in and push out something new from a
Mhm.
newly inspired place. So if
Mhm.
we keep looking at the same thing in the same areas and going the same ways over and over, we may miss an area of inspiration. So it's important that we challenge ourselves to do new things in new ways. And I
Yes.
think that's very important. So, one last question for you. If you can inspire an artist who is in the process of development, in the process of becoming, what would your words of inspiration be to those who are in the process of trusting their own creative process, trusting their artwork? What would you say to them and leave them with a lasting nugget of encouragement?
For sure. I would say that all creativity is linked to vulnerability. If you're making something, it's gonna put you in a vulnerable spot, And there's gonna be so many periods of time where in that vulnerable spot where you're unsure of your what you're making, when you're unsure of how it's going. And sometimes those scary what you're making, how it's going parts can lead to some of your best creations. So the thing is to just keep going, just keep creating. Just if you feel like you're stuck at one piece, just take a break from the piece and come back to it when you're ready to, like, and start something else. Scribble something, create a poem, just explore different ways of expressing yourself until you can express yourself in a way that you feel like you can comfortably move, because nothing's worse than just being stuck and feeling like you're not heading anywhere with your project. So with yourself, in the sense of art, especially with social media. I would like to go back to social media all the time because of how big social media is and how much it influences and impacts our lives as people, as artists, as creatives. To see so much content all the time and all the time, it kind of it's hard to stand out. It's kind of discouraging. But you have to just keep creating, like, don't stop, and just express yourself, create. If you feel like it's a vulnerable spot, but you kind of like it, but you're unsure, it's not something you typically do, or it doesn't look like what you expected it to look like, then almost don't also, I feel like this is important. Also, don't feel so connected to your work that you can't destroy it, I'd say. As weird as that sounds, like, if you're heading somewhere and you're spending so much time and it's stressing you out and you want to finish it, and sometimes it's good to just say, okay, like, consider it done, and say, okay, I need to stop stressing out. I need to stop putting so much weight on myself. I need to stop comparing this to other things that I've done, and other things that, not other things you've done, because you should compare it to other things you've done because you should love your pieces, but you shouldn't compare it to, like, this doesn't look like. Don't lose that perfectionistic side of things, and free your expression, free your creativity, free yourself in your work. And when you free yourself in your work, it'll grab more eyes, it'll grab more attention, because it becomes a unique thing to you. It becomes a unique image to the world. So just keep creating, you. keep creating. Don't stop. Don't stop. Make drawings, paintings, explore other mediums. Just keep going and just keep making things and send them to me. If you're unsure of them, like send them to me. I want to see like I love seeing all types of artwork. Beginners, masters. Like I love seeing all types of artwork, and I think no artwork is necessarily worth more than somebody else's artwork. You know, the contemporary market makes it seem like these are the pieces that matter, but I think everybody's art matters. And if you think everybody's art matters and your art matters, if you think everybody's art matters, which I do, then your art matters. So you need to start thinking your art matters rather than comparing it or feeling like it doesn't matter. Because if it does, I could go on and on, but like just keep creating. Long story short, keep making things, keep creating.
Definitely. So, guys, we just thank my brother, Aaron Chaz, artist, creative, business mind, entrepreneur, personal trainer. He does it all. We just thank him on today for joining Rob the Art Teach interviews and spending time with us, getting to know him as the artist that he is, as the creative that he is. So thank you, Aaron. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.